news number 2 is that a sociology professor at the University of California, Merced, told students that he wouldn't debate me, but he would enjoy ripping my arms out of the socket, like a Wookiee, apparently. So here's a little bit of the audio that was gotten a hold of by Campus Reform.
I wouldn't debate him because being in the same room with that fool is putting this nonsense fascist ideologue on equal footing with me, using my real degree to legitimize garbage politics that are at best nonsensical. I love this gladiator thing. In my world, words mean something. Gladiator, you should pass this around. Well, I won't debate this fool. Why don't y'all set up some kind of MMA thing between me and him? And then the winner can take those $40,000 and give them to whatever charity they want. I'm completely down for this charity match. Oh, I'm completely down for that. Like, if y'all don't think I wouldn't enjoy ripping this fool's shoulder out of its socket, oh my God, y'all don't know. Y'all don't know.
So he's a real intellectual here, ripping this fool's shoulder out of his socket. He sounds like somebody who I'd have a real tough time debating, mainly because I'm not sure that he speaks in full sentences. What a genius he is. I mean, and I love when he says he wants me to use my real degree to debate him. Dude, you're a sociology professor, okay? Real degree. I went to Harvard Law School. Like, shut up. It's absurd. And this notion that I'm going to go and have a physical fight with you, we have this thing here. It's called civilization. It's where we have debates, right? It's where we talk about things. But your response to an actual civilized debate is, you want to rip somebody's arm out of their socket? What fascist nonsense. This is the second professor I know of who suggested that we have a fight. I know everybody always wants to have fights with me. Like, I know, you think I'm not physically prepossessing, and you think that you can beat me up and all this kind of nonsense. You know what? I have more money than you. I can pay people to beat you up if I wanted to. I don't need to beat you up physically. Plus, I can defeat you intellectually anytime I choose. So, of course, they revert back to their schoolyard bully nonsense that they've always been reverting to. Just what right now.
Anyway, so despite the fact that the cost of college has obviously increased due to all these government loan practices, it seems like the left continues to advocate for more generous and more subsidies, more loans. That being the case, how should we decrease the cost of college without preventing lower-income students from being able to attend?
So the only way to decrease the cost of college is to stop with all the subsidies for bullshit majors.
Right.
So that would actually decrease the cost, because what increases cost is it's supply and demand. The more demand there is, it's the same amount of supply, so they just increase the price and just keeps going up and up and up. You keep subsidizing college, a lot of people are going to go, the cost goes up. So if you actually want to decrease the price of college, what you're actually going to have to do is you're going to have to say no more government subsidies for lesbian arts majors, right? And no more subsidies. Like, I'm sure art history is wonderful, but there are 3 jobs in that actual industry. And maybe you might want to try a STEM. Right? Or if you're going to be the entire educational system in the United States is really screwed up. If the truth is that I did 4 years at UCLA in political science, complete waste of time. Right? I could have gone straight to law school and apprenticed with a law firm and done it that way. That's the way we actually used to do these things, and that's the way they do these in other countries. Right? There are other countries that do this, where they say pick a track when you're 18, and now you're on that track, and you go and you intern and you actually work in this job. People are not prepared for if you think you come out of college prepared for a job in modern American economy, it's complete nonsense. What prepares you for a job, as everyone who's ever held a job knows, is actually doing a job. And so what we have to do, there's still areas there's still trade schools where you're learning something. There's still areas of college that are useful. My wife's a doctor. She had to go through a biology major and then through med school in order to get that. You wouldn't want her coming straight out of college and operating on you. But I think that this is a very simple supply and demand issue. And by the way, the idea that poor people would not be able to get a loan to go major in a STEM major if they have great grades and good SAT scores, I don't think that's true at all. I mean, there are plenty of banks who'd be willing. That's a good bet. It's a good bet by a bank. And what we've had right now is a lot of basically subprime loans to bad college borrowers, and then there's not even any security. You can't repossess an education degree.
Right. So that being said, I just graduated from high school, and for financial reasons, I'm heading to community college next year. Are you looking for interns?
So California has pretty strict laws on internships. So we're trying to set up an internship program right now. If we do, I promise I will put that out there on Twitter. Remind me that you're the guy who asked me the question at Politicon about. You'll go to the top of the pile.
Thank you so much.
He disagrees? Okay.
So what is your formal education background? So I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
It is a field of study. But, so you're not necessarily an expert.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of topics.
Let's put it this way, I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, any of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology to know bullshit when I hear it.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right, because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
That would mean that you're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, you haven't established yourself as a PhD or a doctorate in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
And that's your opinion and mine was just stated, so thank you.
Yes, that was my opinion.
I debate socialists all the time, and their only real comeback is, oh, that's not real socialism, or that's not real communism. Is there any way to really get around that and try to make them see that, look, just because your version of socialism, that magical fantasy land version of socialism, has not been tried, doesn't mean that socialism is an acceptable concept.
Yes. So the problem is that you're arguing with them in terms of the effectiveness of socialism. So what that argument is, you say socialism doesn't work, it fails everywhere, it makes people poor and miserable, right? That's the argument. And then they go, but that's because it hasn't been properly tried, right? That's their comeback. So here is the actual argument that works with socialism. It is immoral to steal from people even if you vote to steal from people. Okay, if there are 3 people in a room, and it's me, and I have $100, and you and your friend are in the room, and you vote to beat me up and take my money, that does not make it morally legitimate for you to beat me up and take my money. One of the great lies that's been told about socialism, and you see this all the time, is people say socialism, beautiful idea in theory, but it doesn't work in practice. No, socialism is a shitty idea in theory, and it's an immoral idea in practice. Okay, Socialism violates at least 3 of the basic 10 commandments for those who still care. It makes government into God. It suggests that you can steal from people if you vote for it. And it says that it is good to be covetous of your neighbor's ass. Right? For Bill Clinton, it has a different meaning. But the problem for conservatives is we never actually argue on a moral level. We're constantly arguing on an effective level, on an efficiency level. And that's a problem because the left always argues on the moral level. In the end, they always say, sure, my ideas don't work, but they're fair. They're fair, right? And so what you have to say, the only way to come back to that from that is to say, no, your ideas are not fair, your ideas are theft. Your ideas are theft. You don't get to steal from other people just because you want their stuff. That's the only way to beat that argument, do it on the moral level. Otherwise, they can always argue, well, it's not perfect, it's not perfect. Okay, there's no way to come back from that because, again, they're operating in unicorn land with gumdrop rainbows and fairy skies. The thing I hate the most from the right is this constant refrain. Yeah, socialism, it's a great idea if only it worked. It's not true. It's an unbelievably morally shitty idea. The reason is this. The basic premise of socialism is, I'm here, I'm breathing, give me crap. Right? You have an obligation to care for me. I have a right to health care. I can force that doctor to go to medical school, expend $200,000, spend her entire life learning medicine, and then I can walk into her house and force her to provide me medicine. Right? Capitalism, by nature, is the opposite. Capitalism is the idea that I will starve unless I give you a good or a service that you want. Right? If I don't give you something that you want, I'm not going to eat tonight. It's forced altruism, effectively. Right? We have to have a trade. We have to come to some sort of consensus. I have to give you something cool, and you have to give me something cool. Right? It's great. Socialism is rape, and capitalism is consensual sex.
The reality of the situation is that the economy grows because people engage in consensual transactions, and people invent new things in order to engage in more of those consensual transactions. That's not an impoverishing thing. The truth is that socialism is the most selfish philosophy on planet Earth because it is based on the essential concept that I am breathing, therefore I deserve. Capitalism is, in essence, forced altruism because if I don't give you something that you want, then I will starve. If I don't give you something that you want, then I will starve because it is based on consent, whereas socialism is based inherently on force.
I think as kind of a millennial conservative, constitutional conservative, one of the biggest threats and one of the hardest things to respond to from people on the left is when they talk about the utopia of the Nordic countries, because they are oftentimes armed with a lot of facts in regards to the efficiency of their public programs and things to that effect. So how would you recommend responding to those claims of the utopianism of the Nordic countries?
Okay, so the first thing that's important to notice about the Nordic countries is that the Nordic countries are, by and large, extraordinarily ethnically homogenous. So they're not comparable and culturally homogenous as well. So Vermont looks a lot like Norway. Right? Bernie Sanders' philosophy works in Vermont and it works in Norway, but it only works for a temporary period of time because Vermont doesn't have its own defense budget, and really neither does Norway. Right? We've been paying for the Nordic countries' defense budgets for a long time. Also, it's worthwhile noting that the taxes in these countries are extraordinarily high, and the countries are going bankrupt anyway. So for about a 15-year period, 20-year period, the Nordic countries have been experiencing extraordinarily slow growth, which has led them to actually elect more right-wing governments on economics and deregulate their economies, because it turns out people don't like paying twice the amount that it costs for a normal car. Right? The income tax rate in places like Denmark for middle-class people, not for upper-class people, for middle-class people is like 60%. So, it's easy for students to say 60% sounds good, but you all go to Yale, which means that eventually you'll have a job that pays you enough that you'll be paying a high percentage of your income in taxes, and it ain't that much fun. There's a reason that Denmark, all these countries are now turning away from this, and they've been living off the back of America paying for their defense budget for a very long time. So you have the privilege of not having to pay your own defense budget. You also have a group of what can best be described as upper education people who have grown up in Western countries with a particular set of values. And socialism, at least in the Nordic way, not full government ownership of resources, but high redistribution of income, that is capable of lasting for a certain period of time, but even there it collapses. Right? The lack of my $100,000 salary, that's because society is mean, and so we have to transform the society. And that's why young people, again, 40% back speech codes in American life. This is why I think the last poll was nearing or over 40% of young people are okay with socialism, like the actual socialism, because they don't know anything. They've been taught stupidity, and how they feel is all that matters. I mean, there's a video that's going around the internet getting all sorts of play about income inequality. Income inequality is the stupidest issue. Income inequality means nothing. Right? I mean, I have a lot of income inequality with Bill Gates, but I'm doing pretty well, and I don't care that Bill Gates is doing really well. The only thing we should all care about is that there are poor people. We should figure out how poor people can do better, not how to make Bill Gates less rich. But this video is going around and saying, here's a poll of what Americans think the wealth distribution should look like, and here is what the wealth distribution actually looks like. And I watched this video in bewilderment, and young people love it. And I watched this video in bewilderment saying, who told you that you get to tell the universe how wealth is distributed? Right? Who told you that you have a moral say as to how wealth is distributed? It's immoral, it's evil, it's wrong. You're going to have to steal people's labor from them. But people are not told this, and so they think that their own subjective vision of what reality should look like should govern what reality actually looks like, and it's only later, after 80 years of communist failure, that they realize, oh, that, and hundreds of millions of people dead, that they realize, oh, that was a bad idea.
Even now, I'm hearing, Bernie will say, he talked to that guy at the town hall.
Yeah.
And the guy said, I earned $41,000 a year. And Bernie admitted, your taxes will go up. And then he explains, well, the health costs are going to go down or whatever, which may or may not.
Makes no sense. He says, I'm going to tax you $5,000 and you're going to get $10,000 back in medical service. What magical box did you make that happen in? Are there doctors in the back room there?
Well, that's funny. When he said that, I was thinking, well, if you're healthy,
if the government's that good at things, honestly, I wish leftist solutions work because they're the easiest solutions in the world, right? It's a recession. Tax everybody at 100%, redistribute the wealth. In 2 days, the recession's over.
Yeah.
They don't work. They're crap. By the way, they're also immoral.